The seatbelt buckle was still warm from the nurse's hand when I slid into the back of the rideshare. I was groggy, looped out from anesthesia, but alert enough to know this wasn't the car I'd been expecting. The air smelled like peppermint gum and hand sanitizer. Someone else's jacket hung over the passenger seat. My best friend wasn't in the driver's seat. Neither was he outside or texting or calling. He was just gone. We'd been close since freshman year of college. Kyle was the kind of guy who didn't just show up, he took over. Loud in bars, loud in arguments, loud even in his silences. But that volume had always made me feel like I could disappear next to him in a good way, like I didn't have to be the responsible one for once. Until last month I thought we were still tight. He came over every other Friday to watch fights. He borrowed my air fryer for meal prepping that turned into reheating gas station wings. We laughed like high schoolers and argued like old men. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like ours. So when I got scheduled for minor abdominal surgery, outpatient, but with enough sedation that I couldn't drive, I didn't even hesitate. "Can you take me home after?" I asked. Kyle didn't miss a beat. "Duh, you're not Ubering with stitches, bro, I got you." It wasn't just about the ride, it was about trust. I put his name down as my emergency contact. Surgery day was a Wednesday. My sister, who lived 5 hours away, offered to come stay. I told her not to. "Kyle, got it," I said. I remember checking my phone that morning, sitting on the edge of the paper-lined hospital bed in a gown that tied awkwardly behind me. I'd texted Kyle a reminder. "Check-in done, they say I'll be out around 11. Thanks again, man." No reply, but he'd read it. The little scene bubble told me that much. At 11:42 a.m., I woke up in recovery with dry lips and a splitting headache. The nurse asked, "Is your ride on the way?" I blinked at her, confused. "Yeah," I said, "should be." I checked my phone, nothing, sent another message. "Hey man, all done, can you head over?" I watched the screen for 5 straight minutes. Nothing. By 12:30, the nurse's expression had changed, less polite, more clinical. "We need you to vacate the bed for the next patient. Do you have someone coming?" I told her yes, even though I wasn't sure anymore. I still believed he would show. I mean, how could he not? They moved me to a chair in the waiting area. My hospital bracelet itched. My phone battery hit 19%. Another text. "Are you okay? Just let me know. If you're stuck or something, I can call a lift." Still no reply. Finally, at 1:03 p.m., the nurse came back and said gently, "You'll need to arrange your own transportation, or we can assist." I felt myself nod. There was this weird heaviness in my chest, not anger, not panic, just embarrassment. I opened the rideshare app. It took me longer than usual to type in my address. My fingers weren't cooperating. Even lifting my arm made me feel like my guts were unraveling. While I waited outside for the car, I stared at my phone, still nothing. The rideshare driver didn't talk much, just glanced in the rear view and asked if I needed the AC higher. I nodded, my head throbbed. I kept refreshing my text the whole ride home. When I got inside my apartment, I leaned against the door and slid down until I was sitting on the floor. There were 2 unread emails, a food delivery coupon, an ad for a vacuum I didn't need. But still no Kyle. That night I took my antibiotics, changed my gauze, and sat in silence. Not one message, not a call, not a joke, not even a damn emoji. I texted him one more time. "Hayes, I hope you're okay. I don't know what happened, but I needed you today." I left it at that, didn't double text, didn't call, didn't vent to anyone. Just waited. The next morning I woke up to a message. But not from him. It was from Mark, a mutual friend of ours. He'd sent a meme, something stupid and harmless, a raccoon holding a beer with the caption, "Weekend plans achieved." But in the corner of the screen, I saw the group chat preview. Kyle was active, typing. I opened it. "Kyle's, haha bro, I blacked out last night, woke up on my neighbor's couch, don't even remember how I got there." There were laughing emojis, some LMAO replies. I stared at it. So he was fine, just drunk, didn't forget me, just didn't think of me. That weekend, I got a Venmo notification. "Kyle, right arrow you, $18. Message for the lift, lol, my bad." That was it. 3 days, 1 missed ride, $18 and a lol. I sat with it for a while, didn't accept the payment, didn't decline it either. Just stared. The thing is, Kyle wasn't always like this. He used to be the guy who would bail you out at 2 a.m., no questions asked. He once drove across state lines to pick up his ex's dog when her mom kicked her out. But lately something had shifted, not just with me, with everyone. He missed his brother's baby shower last month, got into a shouting match with our coworker Mike at the bar, flaked on his gym partner 3 times in a row, kept saying, "My bad," like it was a get-out-of-jail-free card. I hadn't said anything. I figured people change and we ride it out. But this wasn't just a missed favor. This was me, drugged and stitched up in a hospital chair, being told by a nurse that no one was coming. This was different. I still hadn't replied to his Venmo by Monday. That's when he finally texted me directly. "Yo, you good?" I stared at the words. "You good?" That's it. No apology, no explanation. I typed and deleted about 10 drafts. Finally, I wrote, "Not really, you ghosted me after surgery, had to ride home alone in a daze, it sucked." He replied in less than a minute. "Bro, I said my bad, I was trashed, didn't even know what day it was, I sent you money." I didn't respond. 2 minutes later. "You seriously mad over a ride?" That's the part that stung the most. That he didn't even get it. It wasn't about the ride, it was about trust. About the fact that when you say, "I'll be there," and someone believes you, especially when they're vulnerable, you show the hell up. Or at the very least, you acknowledge that you didn't. I turned my phone off and watched the ceiling for hours. It felt like something old inside me was cracking in slow motion. Later that week, Mark invited me to a cookout, said Kyle would be there. I told him I'd think about it. What I didn't say was, I wasn't sure I could look at him without feeling something between shame and betrayal. And maybe that said more about me than him. Maybe I'd let myself believe that friendship meant more than it did. Maybe I'd leaned too hard on someone who never offered a shoulder to begin with. But I wasn't ready to let that question go unanswered. Not yet. Because if he thought it was just a ride, maybe he never knew me at all. It was never about the ride. I didn't go to the cookout. I told Mark I was still recovering, which wasn't a total lie. My stitches were healing fine, but I didn't feel like getting grilled next to the guy who left me stranded after surgery and thought $18 and a lol would patch it up. Instead, I stayed in and watched reruns of old UFC matches with the volume low. I couldn't focus. Every time I glanced at my phone, I saw Kyle's unread message sitting there like a rusted nail. "You seriously mad over a ride?" The question was so small, so casually toxic that it kept echoing in my head, like I was the problem, like I had overreacted, like he hadn't promised. And the worst part, a small, traitorous part of me still wanted him to get it, to suddenly say, "Yeah, I screwed up bad, you didn't deserve that." Something real, something human. But Kyle didn't do real anymore. The next day my sister called. She hadn't heard about any of it. I hadn't told her. I think I was embarrassed. She's younger than me but talks like she's a retired therapist. "You should have let me drive up," she said when I finally admitted what happened. "What if you passed out at the curb or something?" I didn't answer right away. "Seriously, James, that's not just flacking, that's dangerous." "I know," I said, I thought he'd show." She exhaled through her nose, the kind of exhale that meant she had more to say but knew I wasn't ready to hear it. "You deserve better than friends who go ghost the second things get inconvenient." She was right, but hearing it from someone else made it hit harder. Kyle and I didn't talk for a few days. The group chat moved on, dumb memes, fight commentary, a debate about fantasy football rankings. He was still there, still loud, still Kyle. I thought maybe he'd say something privately again, maybe bring it up, apologize. He didn't. I knew he saw my messages. The little red marker made sure of that, but it was like the moment had expired, like I'd waited too long to be hurt, and now it was awkward to still care. But I did care. Way more than I wanted to admit. Saturday came around and I got a knock on my door. It was Mark. He had a 6-pack of root beer and a bag of barbecue chips, our old fallback hangout combo. He didn't even wait to be invited in, just walked past me like we were still 23. "I'm not here to defend him," he said as he dropped onto my couch. I don't know, I think he really doesn't get it." I leaned on the doorframe. That's kind of the problem. Mark cracked a can and stared at the screen. He thought you were being dramatic. Figures. He's not good with shame, man. You call him out, he doubles down, every time. That's not an excuse. I know, he paused, but I also know you, and I know you're not just mad, you're hurt. I didn't say anything. The silence was an answer. We sat there for a while watching a replay of UFC 264. The fight was bloody, tactical. I watched it half present, the way you watch something you used to love but now only half feel. Mark eventually left, but not before saying, "You gotta do what's best for you, just don't bottle it so hard it ferments." I laughed at that. But it stuck. That night I finally accepted Kyle's Venmo payment. Not because I forgave him, but because I didn't want to owe him anything, even symbolically. The $18 felt less like reimbursement and more like hush money, like he could tell himself it was handled. I wrote a reply. You covered the ride, not the friendship. I expected a reaction. A defensive rant, an angry call, maybe even a joke to diffuse it. But there was nothing. Just silence. Over the next week, I started noticing things I'd been ignoring. Little flakes, quiet disrespects, times I'd driven him home at 2 a.m. or bylaid him out of a gym membership he couldn't cancel. All the times he called me bro when he really meant backup. There was a pattern, and I'd missed it because Kyle had this charm, this way of making you feel like being in his orbit was a privilege, like chaos was just part of the deal. But now I saw it. I saw it in every unopened message, in every missed call from others I knew he'd let down. Even his sister had quietly unfollowed him on Instagram. Midweek, I got an unexpected call. It was from Olivia, Kyle's ex. We weren't close, but we'd spoken a few times back when they were together. She was kind, quiet, too mature for him. I hope this isn't weird, she said after I answered, but I heard what happened, Mark told me. Oh. She hesitated. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, I know how that feels. She told me about the time Kyle missed her uncle's funeral. He promised to be her +1, said he'd take off work, said all the right things. He went to a music festival instead. She found out from Instagram stories. I didn't know what to say. I should have left then, she said, but I kept thinking he'd change, that it was just a phase. It's not a phase, I said quietly. No, she agreed, it's who he is when nobody's watching. The next few days were quiet, no texts, no updates, just the hum of life moving on. I started walking again, slow and stiff, made myself real food, got through the last of the antibiotics, even cleaned the apartment, which had somehow become a mess of takeout bags and used gauze wrappers. But every time my phone buzzed, a little part of me hoped it was him. With something real. Instead, what I got was a meme in the group chat. From Kyle. It was a cartoon of a guy holding a friendship contract and lighting it on fire, captioned, "When your boy gets mad over Uber money, face with tears of joy." He didn't tag me, but he didn't need to. Everyone knew. I stared at it for a long time. Then I left the group chat. No warning, no goodbye. Just gone. Later that night, Mark texted. You okay? Yeah, just done pretending it didn't matter. He replied a minute later. Good, that's progress. I didn't hear from Kyle for the next 2 weeks. Then out of nowhere, I got a DM. Just one line. You really left over that. That. As if the core of it could be reduced to a missed ride or a single Venmo transaction. As if years of loyalty and quiet sacrifices could be erased with the word, that. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, I had pages. But because I realized something. Kyle was never going to understand. Not unless it happened to him. Not unless he found himself alone on a sidewalk, dazed from painkillers, squinting into the sun, wondering why the person he trusted most had vanished. And even then, he might still say it was just a ride. I needed a ride after surgery, my best friend ghosted me. This continues from where we left off. James has finally walked away from the friendship, but Kyle doesn't realize the depth of the damage. Part 3, some people do say sorry, they just replace you. I didn't respond to Kyle's message. I didn't need to. He'd made it clear again that he wasn't asking to understand. He was just throwing out a hook, hoping I'd bite and reel him back into comfort without accountability. I wasn't playing that game anymore. But ignoring him didn't feel victorious, it felt like grief. Not loud, not cinematic, quiet, lingering, like something that used to fill space in your life but now only echoes when you go looking for it. 3 days later, I saw Kyle at the gym. I'd just gotten back into light cardio, trying not to rip my stitches open. I was on the treadmill when I caught his reflection in the wall mirror, black hoodie, headphones around his neck, lifting too heavy for his form. He saw me, I saw him. He gave a short nod, the kind guys give when they don't want to make a scene. I didn't nod back, not out of spite, just because I didn't want to lie with my face. After 20 minutes, I left. He didn't follow. That night, I opened my freezer and realized I'd forgotten to refill my ice packs. The surgical site was still tender. I sat down slowly on the couch and balanced a bag of frozen peas across my stomach. That's when the text came. Not from Kyle. From Ben. Ben was a mutual, though more Kyle's friend than mine. He worked nights, rarely joined hangouts, but always showed up when it counted. The guy who helped you move even if you only asked once. Hey, just checking in, Mark told me about what happened. That's F*** Ed. I replied honestly. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to process it. Ben followed up. Can I say something kinda blunt? Please do. He's always been like this, you just didn't want to see it because you're a better friend than he is. That sat with me. Because it wasn't new information, it was just finally said out loud. The next week, I started noticing how empty my weekends felt. Not just socially, emotionally, like I'd cut off a limb and was still reaching with ghost fingers. For years, Kyle had been my constant: movie nights, trash TV, grocery runs, post-breakup vent sessions, but now that space was open, quiet. And that quiet started filling itself. Ben invited me to a sister's game night. Mark started swinging by more often, unannounced but always welcome. Even Olivia, Kyle's ex, sent me a playlist out of nowhere, filled with ambient, lo-fi beats I didn't know I needed. The absence was still there, but now it wasn't all absence. About 10 days after the gym encounter, Kyle posted a photo on Instagram. Him and 3 other guys at a dive bar, arms slung around each other, captioned, "New crew, no drama, just vibes." I didn't like it, didn't comment, but I saw it. So did everyone else. He was making a point without having the courage to say it outright. Classic. Mark texted me not long after. Ignore the post, he's posturing. I know. You good. Getting there. And I was, sort of. The hardest part was what Kyle did. It was what I let myself believe for too long. That loyalty was mutual. That because I would have shown up for him and had multiple times he'd do the same. That friendship was a balance sheet, and effort always returned interest. But that's not how it works. Some people withdraw constantly and never deposit, and then act surprised when the bank closes. One afternoon, about a month after the surgery, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Kyle's brother, Nathan. We'd only met a few times, but I picked up. Hey James, sorry to bother you, I just wanted to give you a heads up. I sat up a little straighter. What's up? Kyle's saying some stuff, telling people you freaked out on him over nothing, that you're making him look bad. Of course he was. I didn't say anything. Nathan hesitated. He's spinning it like you ditched him, not the other way around, just wanted you to know. Thanks for telling me. No problem, I think he's embarrassed, honestly, but yeah, I figured you deserved a heads up. That night, I stared at my bedroom ceiling for a long time, phone on my chest, trying to figure out if I owed myself a response. Not to him, to me. To the part of me that still wanted closure. I opened notes and started writing. Not a message, just a list. Things I did for Kyle. Picked him up from that sketchy party sophomore year when his phone was dead. Took a week off work to help him move out of his ex's place. Lent him $600 when his car broke down, never asked for it back. Spent my birthday helping him fix a botched tattoo cover-up. Sat with him outside the ER when he thought he'd OD'd on Adderall and Monster. Told him the truth when everyone else pandered. What he did for me. Promised to pick me up from surgery. That was the only thing on the list. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just sat there letting the truth bleed out on the screen. Some people don't need to betray you dramatically. They just don't show up when it matters. And then they make you feel petty for noticing. A few days later, I went for a long walk, first real one since recovery. I passed by the bar we used to haunt, the street where his car once broke down, and I gave him a jump at 2 a.m. the diner where he made me laugh so hard I nearly choked on a pancake. The memories were still there, but they felt like reruns. Familiar but no longer fresh. Mark and I grabbed lunch that weekend. He didn't push, just asked, feeling lighter yet. Yeah, I said, still sore though. Physical or emotional? Both. He nodded, that's honest. A few nights later, I got another text. Not from Kyle. From Olivia. You free tomorrow? I owe you coffee. I didn't do anything. Exactly, that's the difference. We met up at a little spot downtown, talked about music, work, life. She asked if I was okay. I said I was better, and I meant it. Not fixed, not healed, but better. Later, as I walked back home, I passed a guy helping his friend into a cab, one arm around his shoulder, one hand holding a paper bag of medication. The guy was wobbly but smiling. And the friend? The friend didn't look annoyed, he looked present. I kept walking, but something in my chest unclenched. That's what it's supposed to look like. I needed a ride after surgery. My best friend ghosted me. We're in the final stretch, one more part to follow after this. Let's continue the slow, emotional unraveling with grounded realism and character-driven reflection. The stitches came out on a Thursday. The nurse complimented how well it had healed. I smiled, said thanks, but didn't mention the nights I'd laid perfectly still because laughing hurt too much, or that I'd Googled signs of infection more times than I cared to admit. I rode the bus home. Not because I had to, Mark had offered to drive, but because I wanted to prove something to myself, that I didn't need to depend on people who only seemed dependable. There's a quiet power in getting home by yourself. Even if it's just one stop, one plastic seat, one tired transfer at the wrong corner. That weekend, Kyle sent me a voice note. His first real outreach in over a month. The thumbnail hovered on my screen for hours. I didn't open it. Didn't want to hear his voice trying to smooth things over with jokes or excuses or deflections that sounded like apologies but never quite were. I let it sit. The way grief does. I finally listened to it Sunday night. His voice was casual, like we'd just missed each other at the gym. Yo man, I don't know if you're still mad or what, but this whole thing been weird. I guess I didn't realize it hit you that hard. I figured we were tighter than that, like we've been through worse, you know? Anyway, if you want to talk, hit me, or not, your call. No ownership, no acknowledgement of what he did, just that I felt a way about it. He thought the friendship died because I got mad. Not because he left me alone, doped up and disoriented, in a hospital chair I couldn't even stand up from without a nurse holding my arm. I didn't reply. Instead, I played it again. Paused at the line, I figured we were tighter than that. That's the line people use when they've already disrespected you and want you to carry the weight of their shame. I figured we were tighter than that equals you should have let it slide. I closed the app. Letting go isn't dramatic, it's slow. A quiet decision you make every day to not reopen wounds just because someone finally shows up with a bandage too late. A week later, I got lunch with Olivia again. She brought her dog this time, a stocky rescue mutt named Milo with a bent ear and the saddest eyes I've ever seen. He's protective, she warned as we walked toward the outdoor table, but soft once he knows you. I knelt down, I'm the same way. She smiled. There was something easy about talking to her, no pretense, no measuring my words. She didn't try to make things lighter, she let the air hold its weight. At one point I asked, did Kyle ever reach out to you after the breakup? She shook her head, nope, just deleted our shared playlists and unfollowed me, real grown-up. We laughed, but not the kind of laugh that ends with smiles, more like an exhale from somewhere that used to hurt. The following Monday, I started back at work full-time. The office hadn't changed, still too cold, still smelled like burnt coffee, still that one printer that screamed instead of printing. But people asked how I was doing, and for once I answered honestly. I'm better, I said, still sorting some stuff. They nodded like they understood. Maybe they did. Pain makes people honest in quiet ways. One afternoon, I bumped into Ben again. He was picking up takeout near my place. We talked for a bit, then he said, "You know, I never said this out loud, but I always felt like Kyle used you as his moral buffer." I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? You were his conscience, man. Like if he still had you around, he could screw up and still tell himself he was a good guy. I didn't respond, but the words burrowed somewhere deep. He was right. I wasn't Kyle's friend. I was his alibi. The next day, Kyle finally texted again, this time just 3 words. "We done here." It didn't make me angry, it made me sad. Because it wasn't a question, it was a challenge, a dare to finally be the bad guy and end it officially so he could tell himself I quit on him. I didn't reply. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't owe him a clean ending. He had already given me mine, a silent no-show in a hospital parking lot, a meme in a group chat, a Venmo note with lol attached. That Friday I texted Mark. "You down for wings and fights?" "Hell yes." We ended up at a small sports bar, not the old one Kyle used to drag us to. This place was quieter, clean booths, a staff that didn't look annoyed just to be there, better sauce too. As we sat eating and debating who'd win the welterweight matchup, Mark nudged me. "Hey, just so you know, I told Kyle I'm not picking sides, but I also told him if he brings your name up again, I'm out." I nodded, thanks. He shrugged, "You deserved better." The next day, I saw Kyle's name pop up on my social feed. He blocked me. Didn't unfollow, didn't mute. Blocked. A full, hard sever, like he needed to prove something to himself, not me. It felt childish, but also kind of freeing. Because I wasn't in his orbit anymore. Wasn't his fallback, his buffer, his audience. He could spin it however he wanted now, I wouldn't be there to hear it. I took a long walk that evening, no headphones, no texts, just me in the neighborhood. Passed by the bus stop I used that day after getting my stitches removed. I remembered how proud I felt getting home on my own. That pride hadn't faded. Neither had the ache, but the ache was different now. More like soreness after a long workout, proof of healing, not damage. That night I journaled something for the first time in years, just a simple line. Loyalty to someone who won't carry you when you're down isn't loyalty, it's self-abandonment. And I wasn't abandoning myself anymore. This part closes the emotional arc with reflection, grounded closure, and believable change, no melodrama, just quiet dignity. Part 5, you can miss a person and still be right to leave. I didn't check to see if Kyle unblocked me. I didn't revisit the old group chat or scroll back through texts or reopen that voice memo. I didn't reread the Venmo message or the meme or the half apology that blamed my reaction more than his action. Not because I stopped caring, but because caring no longer required surveillance. I was in the checkout line at the pharmacy, waiting for toothpaste and allergy meds when I ran into Nathan again, Kyle's brother. He did a double take and smiled. "Hey man, you look lighter." I shrugged, fewer infections, fewer regrets. Nathan chuckled, he's still spinning his version of what happened, told our cousin you ghosted him. "Let him," I said. "You really don't care." "I care," I said, "I just don't need to defend the truth anymore. It doesn't require a closing statement." He nodded slowly, "You're a better man than he is." I didn't answer that, just wished him well and left with my receipt flapping behind me. The weather warmed up. My stitches became a faint line of scar tissue, tucked just beneath my shirt, a quiet reminder that I'd been cut open and came back stronger. I cleaned out my apartment one Sunday, not a full purge but a symbolic one. I tossed the hoodie Kyle left at my place over a year ago, the one he always claimed he meant to grab next time. I deleted the last photos of us on my phone, not out of spite, but because they didn't match the version of him that had shown up or not shown up when it really counted. I archived the group chat. Mark had started a new one anyway, a quieter space. No sarcasm that doubled as deflection, no memes that took shots, just guys being decent to each other. One night I got dinner with Olivia again, third time now, no expectations, just company that didn't feel like a performance. We talked about the small things, Milo's recent vet visit, her new gig editing podcast clips, the tea place that opened down the block. Then toward the end, she looked at me and said, "You seem more solid, like something locked into place." I think it did. She waited. I stopped trying to make sense of it, stopped trying to rewrite the past into something it was. She sipped her drink. That's growth. Feels like loss. It's both. The next day, I got a letter in the mail. A real one, envelope, stamp, all that. It was from my sister, a thank you card, even though I hadn't done anything recently. Inside she'd written, "Sometimes the bravest thing isn't speaking up. It's walking away from someone who won't listen." I put it on the fridge. Weeks passed. Kyle faded, not dramatically, not like a villain hauled off screen, just quietly, like background noise I finally tuned out. People stopped mentioning him. Mark said he'd moved gyms. Ben said he was talking about moving states. I didn't ask where. Didn't want to know. Some chapters close themselves, even if you never write the last line. Then one morning, I found myself parked outside the same clinic where my surgery had been. Not for an appointment, not to revisit pain. I was just dropping off a friend from work who'd tweaked his shoulder lifting. He didn't have a car, didn't want to ask his roommates. I offered. He said, "Are you sure it's out of your way?" I said, "You don't leave someone stranded after they get cut open. That's not how it works." He nodded. "Thanks, man, I owe you." "No," I said, "you don't." On the way home, I passed the sidewalk where I stood after surgery, blinking into sunlight, phone in hand, no idea what was happening. I remembered how exposed I felt, how small. But now, that version of me felt like someone I could forgive. Not because he made a mistake trusting Kyle, but because he held on to hope a little longer than he should have, because he believed in something that should have been true. And because when it finally cracked, he let it. I still don't hate Kyle. But I don't chase people who disappear mid-promise anymore. If your friendship can't carry weight when I'm stitched and half-dazed and sitting under fluorescent lights, then I won't carry your ego once I'm healed. That's the trade-off. That's the price of my peace. Do I miss him sometimes? Yeah, the good parts, the early parts, the easy laughter and Friday night wings and all the things that felt like brotherhood. But missing someone isn't the same as needing them back. Not when they made a decision that told you in actions, not words, exactly how much your pain mattered to them. You can forgive without inviting someone back into your life. You can grieve someone still breathing. You can love the friendship you thought you had and still walk away from the one you actually did. That's what I learned. And I won't forget it. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.